Assalamualaikum everyone. For the second part of upper limb osteology, we proceed to the third section, which is forearm, that consists of radius and ulna. Okay. We begin with radius. Okay. Radius, yeah, radius is situated laterally. Sorry, it's situated lateral in your forearm, and it has proximal part, distal end, and shaft. Yeah, shaft. The proximal part consists of the head. Okay, the head. You should bear in mind that for radius, the proximal part and distal part. Okay, the head of radius is at the proximal part, but it is the smaller part as compared to distal end of radius. You get what I mean? Okay, even though this is radius and it has head at the proximal and distal, but the head is a smaller part of the bone as compared to distal end of radius. Okay, I'll tell you later why I emphasize that the head is smaller. The head at the proximal part of radius is smaller than distal end of radius. Yeah. Okay, and this head articulates with capitulum of the humerus that forming the elbow joint. Yeah. Okay, and beneath, distal to the head is the neck. The neck of radius, just inferior to the neck. Okay, and it has radial tuberosity. It is where the bicep tendon attached, insert here. Yeah. Okay, so when you have the bone and you got this, you can identify the radial tuberosity. That means this is the anterior part of the radius. Huh? And the shaft, okay, of the proximal part, the shaft of the radius, it is triangular in shape, and it has 3 border and 3 surfaces. 3 border, okay, you have to remember this is lateral bone. Okay, it has the anterior border, posterior border, and interosseous. Okay, interosseous border means, okay, this is radius and this is ulna. Yeah, radius, ulna, lateral, medial. Okay, this is where the interosseous membrane located. Okay, interosseous membrane located between radius and ulna. So the interosseous border is the medial side of radius. Okay, and it has 3 borders, which are 3 surfaces, which are anterior, posterior, and lateral surface. Yeah, as compared to ulna, ulna has medial surface because ulna located medially. For radius, it has lateral surface because radius is a lateral bone in forearm. Okay, so you get this. Okay, 3 border, anterior, posterior, and interosseous, where interosseous membrane attached to connect between radius and ulna. Yeah, and 3 surfaces, anterior, posterior, and lateral surface. Okay. And okay, radius has we covered the proximal shaft. Now we come to the distal end of radius. Okay, the distal part, it has 5 surfaces. Yeah, good. Okay, anterior, posterior, lateral, medial, and inferior. Okay, so how to differentiate between anterior aspect and posterior aspect of distal end of radius? The anterior surface is smooth and the posterior surface is a bit rough because of dorsal tubercle. Okay, you can see the image before this. And the medial surface, okay, the medial surface it has ulnar notch of the head of ulna. Okay, let me rephrase. The medial aspect of distal end of radius has ulnar notch of the radius. Ulnar notch of the radius accommodate head of ulna. Okay, just bear with me. I'll show you the picture after this. Okay, and the lateral surface has a projection downwards. Okay, that is known as styloid process. Okay, and the inferior surface is where the articulation between distal end of radius and carpal bone. Okay, here distal end of radius and carpal bone to form the wrist joint. Okay. Okay, let me show you this. As I mentioned to you, that the distal part of radius here has the ulnar notch of radius. Okay, you have to remember. Okay, for radius, okay, the head is small, but the distal end is big. Okay, as compared to ulnar, the proximal is big, but the distal end is small. Okay, radius, head is small, the proximal part, head is small, the distal part is big. Okay, for ulnar, okay, the proximal part is big, but the head, the distal part is small. Okay. So, in the case of radius, the bigger part is the distal end, and ulnar head here is small. Ulnar head make a notch to the radius, to the distal end of radius. This ulnar head, the small ulnar head, make a notch to the distal part of radius, and this notch we call as the ulnar notch of radius. Ulnar notch of radius. Okay, and after this, when we talk about ulnar, we will have, because of the proximal part, ulnar is bigger. Ulnar is bigger than head of radius. Head of radius making a notch to ulnar. So ulnar here, the proximal part of ulnar, has a radial notch. Okay, because ulnar have a notch, making a notch to the proximal part of ulnar. Radius making a notch to the proximal part of ulnar. So ulnar here, okay, have a radial notch. We call it a radial notch of ulnar. A radial notch of ulnar. Okay, radial head making a notch, forming a radial notch of ulnar, and the ulnar, the small head of ulnar, making a notch to the distal end of radius. Ulnar making a notch to the radius. So radius here has the ulnar notch of radius. Ulnar notch of radius. Okay, the small part making an impression to the big part. Okay, the small ulnar head making an impression to the big part of radius. So it called ulnar notch of radius. Okay, radius, the big part. Here, the small part of radius making an impression to ulna, the big part of ulna, so we call it as the radial notch of ulna, the big one. Ulnar notch of radius, ulnar notch of radius, big distal part of radius, radial notch of ulna, the big part of ulna. Okay, get what I mean? You can see from the picture here, and here. Okay, small ulna making a notch here, so ulnar notch of radius, and small head of radius making a notch to ulna, so it's called as radial notch of ulna. Radial small notch of ulna, big. Ulna small notch of radial, big. Okay? Okay, coming back to our lecture. Okay, where were we? Okay, the radius. Okay, the radius. Proximal and distal. Okay, it articulates, radius articulate in 4 places. Okay, first, elbow joint, whereby the radius, the head of radius articulates with capitulum of humerus. Okay, like the previous, the part 1, head of radius articulate with capitulum of humerus, forming the elbow joint. Yeah, okay, and this radius also forming a joint with ulna. Proximal radius, the radial head, and the proximal part of ulna making a joint together between the articulation between the radial head, like I said before, the small radial head, and the radial notch of ulna. So there's another joint here. First joint, radius and humerus, then the proximal part, radius and ulna, and the distal part, okay, the distal part, radius and carpal bone, particularly scaphoid and lunate, and distal end of radius, forming the wrist joint, and the distal part of radius and ulna, forming the distal radio-ulnar joint between the ulnar notch of radius and head of ulna, the small head of ulna, and the ulnar notch of radius, forming joint here.